Hey, thanks for checking out The Solid Verbal. Now would be a great time to subscribe to the channel for college football content all off season long. So let's go to another perceived power tie. Let's go to Miami, okay?
Ah, yes.
Let's go to Miami just because in terms of fascinating things, you have a lot to choose from here, okay? I've put up, you've got quite the buffet of fascination.
Yeah,
where are you going with the Canes?
The Canes 5-7 last year.
Yeah.
So you say perceived power, not from last season.
Right.
We're talking back like turn of the century, right? That was the last time Miami was an actual power.
Yeah.
Their over-under is 7.5 this year. So Vegas, I think, is a little bit unsure of what to make of Miami, especially after last year. Definitely expected more from the defense a year ago, and ended up giving up a ton of big plays. Couldn't create big plays on offense, but ended up giving up a ton of big plays. Miami fans will especially remember that Middle Tennessee game. They gave up 4 plays of at least 70 yards. They were weirdly symmetrical with the big play thing, which no one's really fully explained in any of the preview content I looked at, but the passing game really was lacking. Tyler Van Dyke, whom we really liked before the season, big letdown there. He's hurt as well. So just a lot, I think, bottomed out for the Canes last season. My fascination, or should I say hesitation, this year with Miami is with the phrase, quote, "they're too talented."
Okay.
Did you read anybody talking about Miami saying they're too talented to go 5-7 again?
Right.
You read any of that? Because I did.
Of course.
Too talented. Miami is too talented to fail the way they did in 2022. And I understand where people come from there because they got to be better. They brought in more talent. One would assume they got to be better because they're more talented. And now they've got the right coordinators in place. That's another trope with Miami. Now the right guys. Mario's got the right guys in place, right? I don't necessarily disagree with that logic. I'm just not willing to assume it as fact, Dan.
Okay.
If we would have assumed it last year, we would have been horribly wrong. Bill Connolly said it was the worst team Miami fielded since 1970. So I think this team is better. I think. I'm not confident, but I think this team's better because of the talent, because it's been built in a very Mario Cristobal way from the lines on out. Kind of the Cristobal special. I think both lines will be special, or at least more special than we saw last season, and that's a good thing. On the offensive side, they bring over Shannon Dawson from Houston. He saw the same numbers that we did, and when they asked him about it, he says that they've got to throw the ball downfield a little bit more, and they've got to generate pop. Maybe he's looking at the same spreadsheet I'm looking at. I don't know. But what we know about Shannon Dawson is that his offenses are pretty good at pumping out 1,000-yard receivers. So if he can continue that trend, that would be good news for Tyler Van Dyke. That'd be good news for the receiving core. I'm not blown away by the receiving core, if I'm being honest, but it's easily top half of the conference, and frankly, that's good enough to hit the over 7.5.
Sure.
So in theory, somebody like a Colby Young will pop. Xavier Restrepo out of the slot, he can eat. If this offense that Shannon Dawson is bringing to Coral Gables can kind of follow the trend, then presumably the offense is going to be a lot better. Now, we said that last year. Josh Gaddis, didn't he win the Broyles Award? We thought he was going to be
Miami.
He
didn't. Yeah,
not for Miami. He did, and he's gone.
Yeah,
he's up at Maryland now. So offensively, I think is really my main point of intrigue. However, defense is often overlooked in the Miami conversation in the preseason here. Now, they did go out and get a different defensive coordinator, if only because Kevin Steele went to Alabama. Kevin Steele, in his own right, is pretty accomplished. He's been around a long time. Everybody seems to have a hot take about Kevin Steele, but he wouldn't be at Alabama if Nick Saban didn't at least think that the guy knows what he's doing. So I'm a little hesitant to just pin it all on the coordinator. They had the wrong guy, and now they got their guy in there with Lance Guidry. I'm not willing to jump to that conclusion. But they did poach Lance Guidry from Tulane days after he was poached from Marshall. In theory, the defense should be pretty solid. They've got 3 guys back up front. They've got 3 of their top 4 linebackers. They've got James Williams and Cameron Kitchens back at safety.
Yeah.
also a bunch of transfers, a bunch of high school recruits in. I think these are guys that can all step in and make an impact. The Lance Guidry defense, at least as we know it at Marshall, was very, very solid. It was a statistical machine, and it will look very similar in that they're going to stick with the 4-2-5 base, maybe run a little 4-3, but by and large, it's going to be the same base set that Kevin Steele ran a year ago. Lance Guidry's job will be trying to get more out of that. So what is my point of fascination with Miami? My point of fascination with Miami is the too talented to fail thing. It is, they've now got new coordinators in there. They've now got more talent in there, both of which to some extent felt true last year and they bottomed out. So is it a new and improved 2.0 version of it this year? Or are we entering into a situation where we're going to be disappointed again? If you go through the schedule and try to pick out the most likely losses, you're going to get to 3 or 4, and that's it. But the danger with Miami, as it is with some of the other teams that I think we talked about, right? Florida State, I made this point. What you realize about the state of the Miami program is that it's not losing to the top teams. It's losing to the not so obvious teams.
Right.
That is what will ultimately fell them if indeed it goes the way of last season. So I kind of like the over Miami. I'm buying the Canes right now. If you look at DraftKings, you can get plus odds on over 7.5. And given the fact that there really truly are only 3 teams, in my opinion, on the schedule that are more talented than the Canes, in Texas A&M, Clemson, and Florida State, I think they stand pretty good shot of hitting that over. I don't think this is a 7-5 team. I think 8-4 is about right. Maybe 9-3 if things really break their way. I don't think it's a talent problem anymore. I'm skeptical it was a coordinator problem last year, but
it was pretty clearly a coordinator problem last year, along with an injury problem, along with a talent problem.
Yeah, I mean,
there was like 7.5 problems last year.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I'm hesitant to say it was just a coordinator problem.
Fair.
And I feel like a lot of the narrative that I've read here in the preseason has been just that. And that now they've got their guys and coaching, and they've got their guys on the roster on the 2 deep. They're loaded. They've brought more of the Mario guys in. They're going to be just fine. I'm not willing to assume that as fact quite yet, but certainly they need to get healthier. Certainly if they've got, their ones out there from start to finish, they'll be in a better place. So I'm heavy on Miami over, and I didn't think I would be. I came into this very skeptical of the Canes in 2023. I came out of this liking them more than I expected. I'm not entirely sure why, but it's there for them. Look, it's there for them. Could they beat Texas A&M week 2?
Sure.
I think A&M's got more talent, but the game's at home.
And Coral Gables, yeah.
Game was close last year. We still don't know what the hell the A&M offense is going to look like. That's a winnable game. That could be one of those where Miami sneaks under the radar. I don't know. We'll see.
If Miami wins fewer than 8 games, it's a failed season. I've seen Tyler Van Dyke, when healthy, play college football. I've seen Colby Young play college football. I know what is coming in along this offensive line and what returns on this offensive line. At the very least, they should be okay. They should be okay. They were not last year. They should be okay. They should be able to run the ball. This should be a relative strength of the offense. Like you mentioned on defense, if they're limiting big plays, which they should be doing, they're deeper than they were last year, and hypothetically, they should be better coached with a better fit at coordinator. We'll see. The culture should be better than where it was last year after reports of a not great behind-the-scenes situation. So
That's right. That's right.
Fewer than 8, I think, is, you look at the schedule, and there are, what do they have, Florida State and NC State in consecutive weeks on the road?
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's balanced out pretty well.
It's okay. It's okay. And it seems like it's there for them. You mentioned the offensive line. Miami's got top tier in terms of the ACC offensive line.
And 2 of the absolute best offensive linemen coming in from the...
Yeah. So I think it's Florida State, it's Clemson.
Yeah.
Duke has a really good offensive line. I would almost be inclined to put them above Miami. But beyond that, it's Miami.
Sure.
They're really good along the offensive line, and I think that should bode pretty well for hopefully keeping Tyler Van Dyke upright and healthy and maybe unlocking that ground game a little bit more.
Yeah. If they don't win 8 games this year, I don't know what the conversation is around Miami and Mario Cristobal. He has a long contract. I don't know what you do with this team if they don't win 8.